Good morning guys, and welcome to today's vlog. Today is Thursday, I believe.
It is, yes.
It's Thursday the 9th of February, the day before my 52nd birthday. It's going to be a bit of an emotional roller coaster for us, shall we say. Today's walk, talk, etc. to you guys might just be us walking through Bletchley on our way back to where we live on the lakes. But we've got a special guest with us because we're going to collect my sister's ashes. So we'll start with collecting her, we'll go off into the pub, have a drink in her honour and a breakfast, and then we'll slowly make our way through Bletchley. There's not much in the way of sights, I'm afraid, but it's a chance for me to reminisce and pay respect, so to speak. So I hope you can join us. Thank you. Right, our breakfast has turned up. Rachel has gone for a large English breakfast, which includes egg, mushrooms, beans, hash browns, bacon, a couple of rounds of toast, extra toast for some reason. I've got the same, but I don't eat eggs, so they've taken that, replaced it with a rasher of bacon. Rachel swapped a mushroom for a sausage, so I've got that extra. We both have a latte, and because we got Deb with us here, I have a pint of Bud Light. Back in the 80s I would have drunk probably Foster's, Grolsch or Castlemaine. This is what you used to drink at that time, it's what was available. And for Deb's, we've got a single malt whiskey, that's a Glenfiddich, that's what Deb used to drink back in the 80s, what she said she always loved. And yeah, we're just sitting down, having our breakfast together, and then we'll be taking my sister home with us. Well, that was breakfast at Captain Ridley's. We used to frequent now, not very often. Our local pub would have been the Bull Hotel. It was just at the top of Fenny Stratford, past the Swan. We used to go there pretty much through the 80s, the early 90s. Then I think the people sold up, that became the Monastery, which became a gay public house. And that grew so big that they took over the Irish club, which was at the time Kilrush, and that became Pink Punters. So a bit of history there for you. That's where we used to hang around. But yeah, Deb's drink was just like, I know the colour of it was like a urine sample. And yeah, you never get over the taste of that. I'm not a whiskey drinker at all, but I've done it for Deb's, that's for sure.
You did.
We are now around the back of what used to be Bletchley Cinema. This was going back to, I suppose it was run down and just sort of fallen into disrepair by the time the mid-80s had come around and they opened up the Point up the city centre, which is no longer a cinema itself, but we see films there. We cube round the corner here, this area here, before it's all changed. We queued round here in 1978 for Grease. Before that we would have queued for Jaws, which is our favourite movie of all time.
Yes.
Certainly mine, that's for sure. And I think Who Dares Wins. I think it was a film based on the embassy siege, the Iran embassy siege, with which the SAS went in and took. I think that was probably the last film we see there. This adjacent to us now is where the current Bletchley Leisure Centre is. Not a patch on what the old one was, I'm afraid. There used to be a huge, giant snake tunnel type effect thing that went from a multi-storey car park, which used to sit where them apartments are there now, and the leisure centre here, it went across the road, and you had this huge snake that went across, went into the leisure centre itself, which was situated in like a pyramid. Like, is it like the Louvre or whatever in France? It looked a bit like that, but had a fantastic slide. If it didn't knock you out going down on that, had an arcade in there. Very oldie-woldy, but yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed it. We're now at the bottom of Queensway, called because of its name change in '77 for the Queen's visit here. But Bletchley itself has seen a lot better days. There's not a lot here now. There is one florist which goes back to the old days, which is Ramsbottom's. Philip Ramsbottom used to live a couple of doors away from us in Felmere, and it was his sister's shop, and it still stands here today. This area used to have a huge canopy over it, which was made out of fiberglass stroke plastic. It was your Bletchley market. where you can see that sign that's flashing shoe shop over there, that would have been Woolworths, but everything, as I said, has changed. The houses, the flats, apartments above have remained the same from back in the day, but everything below that level is totally different now. Old Bletchley Con Club, never actually been a member. And that is where we usually frequent for a coffee. That's Costa's, but that back in the day was Granada, where you could go and rent a TV. There is more weight in comparison of the emotion that's going on as opposed to what I'm actually carrying. Deb probably weighs about, I guess, 4.5 kilos sitting on my back, but emotionally it feels like 45-50. It really does. Before all this really come to an end, that there is Stevenson's house. That is probably, well, it would be, that would be the last property that Deb rented. She was there for a couple of years. She had Jake and Liberty with her, who have since gone back to God knows where in Canada, to be honest with you. Originally this was an office building. At the bottom there was your Halifax, where I believe where them shutters are. Both myself and my sister had our first ever bank account. Your little savings book. Times have certainly changed. I don't even think there's, I think maybe there's one, possibly two banks left in Bletchley now. Everything has gone online. This wall here, the back of Wilkinson's, this has all totally changed. Knocked down, rebuilt, knocked down, rebuilt again. Back in the day it was a place where you could apply to join the army. Had your Greenways Cafe. At the front was the old Barclays Bank. But yeah, this is pretty much about the only store that you could get anything in Milton Keynes. Well, Bletchley now, Milton Keynes you still can, but Bletchley for sure. And even that, it just shows you how sad the times are. Someone ram raided it the other day just to nick the lottery scratch cards. All of this area has certainly changed. We're currently standing on top of what would have been the underpass. Now you use the zebra crossing, but back in the day used to be able to go underneath that and come up at the side of the opticians in the Brunel Centre over there. This is now called McCarthy Sports Bar. Back in the day it was the Barrel House, but we most fondly remember it as being the Park Bletchley, which was a beefeater. And this area at the top here was a restaurant. We would come here with me mum and dad. It would be special occasions, my birthday, Deb's birthday, me dad's or me mum's, or father's, mother's day, etc. We would predominantly have a T-bone steak with chunky chips, peas, tomato, mushrooms, etc. My sister, for some reason, she always wanted a prawn cocktail, and she found out she didn't like it. She loved prawn cocktail crisps, but she hated prawn cocktail. So most of the time we would pretty much go for a soup starter, and then to finish off we would have a Knickerbocker Glory, which is like a classic ice cream sundae dessert. Up the top there is your Bletchley train station. The old police station would have been there. My first place of employment, although that's been turned into apartments, that was telephone rentals, which become cable and wireless, then Vodafone I believe. Beyond that to your right, probably about half a mile, is Bletchley Park with the home of the Codebreakers. You cannot go wrong with a Ruby Murray curry. One of our favourites. For us it's always, we get a Chinese as a takeaway and an Indian as a sit down, and myself, my sister, we would frequent either the Golden Curry or the Rose of India over the years and had many a good time in there. Just to the side of that, past this Dragon Boat, which is a Chinese takeaway, there used to be, back in the 80s, a long shack that went parallel to the wall there that come right to the front here, and that was called Fun City. And that was like an arcade. It wasn't like your fruit machines, it was just like your old games, your Pac-Man, etc. That old shabby shack over there is the Bletchley Working Man's Club, which I believe has fallen into disrepair and possibly even closed now. We're going to cross the road here. You see like they're doing work, possibly tearing it down. Originally this was Bletchley Cattle Market. This goes back before I was even born. I was born in 71, so before that time it was a cattle market in a farmland area here. That went on to become Sainsbury's, which was a regular occurrence for us. I used to come here with my mum, with Debs. We used to use wobbly our old pushchair, put the boxes in there with the food and that, and walk back to Bletchley and the lakes from there. But that, I believe, at one point Morrison's was going to purchase it, but all your little scroats, all your little wannabes climbed onto the roof, got in there and destroyed the place from the inside out. And so when they come to view it, they think, nah, we don't want it. And it stood there empty for the best part of 3-4 years now, I guess. Deb used to go to a nightclub here. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been Rozelle's. But the door there where it says Total Dojo used to go up to a nightclub. Pretty much apart from Select, which is like a budget pharmacy inside, you've got your CEX exchange, which is people go and exchange their DVDs and videos, etc., and F. Hines, which I believe was Ratner's once. But apart from that, the Brunel Centre is no more. There is nothing in here. You got farm foods, but it's very, very basic. I'm not going to intrude on people by filming them, so I'll just show you a quick glimpse of what it's like. Yep, totally run down now. Your WH Smiths and your boots have gone now as well. It is very, very difficult to film in areas where people don't probably want to be on camera themselves. But that there is your Ram's Bottoms. As I said before, that's the oldest store left in Bletchley, which is a flower store. Up the top there, the other part of Queensway, there's a place called Top Burger, which used to be a wimpy bar we used to sit in many, many moons ago. But this place is totally run down now. There's nothing left for us. Just walking parallel now with the old Bletchley Library. Used to go there a few times. There's stuff that Deb would be looking into for her artwork, which she done technical drawing, etc. I would get myself a book and pretend I could read, which I could at a later date, but I struggle getting on in early life. We're kind of just off Westville Road now, Bletchley, and this is a landmark to many of us who grew up on the lakes or just Bletchley in general and come from further south and have to make our way into Bletchley town centre itself. It's the famous blue bridge that is not blue. It was a pastel blue for the best part of maybe 3 decades, and then they had to do repair work on it and they painted it white. But that was the old bridge. We used to do poo sticks, etc. from there. Few local and not so local inhabitants. 4 of them ducks look like regular ones, but one's a foreigner, probably Canadian. To many people this might just seem, oh well, bit this, bit of that, bit naff, bit boring even, but this is something we can no longer do together in life. And we would have thrown the old bits of wood, like the old poo sticks, the other side, and watched as they come through this end. And that goes off and joins the River Ouse at the back, just past the Grand Union Canal. Some beautiful colours on that duck at the front. Anyone knows what it is? Let's let them be and get back on with our walk. Just onto this little incline which goes up to Water Eaton Road. This is Willow Way, and then the other side of that you got Hunter's Drive, which we're not going through Hunter's Drive because we want to go down past the co-op and the paper store to your left on Water Eaton, because it's somewhere where Deb used to go and get her cigarettes in her school break. Going back to a time when she was probably about 16 and a bit of a rebel with her best friend Sarah. Water Eaton Road, which truly hasn't changed in 5 decades, still remains the same to this day. Yeah, I don't know what it was called back in the day, but we just used to call it the paper shop. There's a little post office that used to be to the right hand side there. We used to get all sorts of sweets and goodies out of that place, and that's where Debs would go and get her cigarettes in her lunch break from school. For us, it's simply a matter of forgetting what that sign says there, which says Sycamore Hall, because this area here, known as Water Eaton Church Centre, this is what we used to call the Sycamore Club. Now, when I was growing up, I remember Deb disappearing on a Friday night. I would get a bag of crisps, some sweets and a can of pop and sit there and wonder when it would be my time. But then eventually it would come that time, and on a Friday evening we would come down here. There would be a disco in that hall there, your classic 80s disco with your Madness and your Adam and the Ant, all that sort of era, Human League, Duran Duran, etc, etc, who Deb dearly loved. That once a week on a Friday become twice a week, because they started doing it on a Monday, and that was run by a guy called Barry Fields, and his partner he used to run that with, who was like a junior, was called Carlos. Now Carlos actually lives in one of the houses over there, and he's still about. I see him quite regularly, and to be honest with you, if you remember him from back in the day in the 80s, he's aged a little bit, but not a lot, unlike the rest of us. But yeah, happy times. I suppose the last time I would have been coming out of there would have been about 1988. But yeah, that was our local youth club, the Sycamore Club. And we're now on territory that we call home. This is Bletchley, MK2 postcode area, otherwise known as Drayton Manor, but properly known as the Lakes Estate. This is where we grew up. I still live here, still live in the same address I grew up in, because we moved back in with my mum after, well, around the time my father was ill and he passed away. I made a promise to look after my mum, so we are still there now to this day. This car park here, unfortunately, about maybe 2.5 years ago, a murder was committed in that car park. So you get the pleasant things as well. Don't understand the reasons or the whys. Some sort of altercation, and as is the norm nowadays with people carrying bloody blades, someone met their end right there. Gonna make our way to a play area that we used to frequent when we was probably just shy of being teenagers. My mum would take us down here, possibly my dad, and then we'd make our own way down here eventually. Otherwise known as the Dome. No longer the Dome, changed a bit over the years, but what was there, if people remember back in the 70s, Mike Oldfield tubular bells, it was a dome area with a set of tubular bells that were sort of placed there as a climbing frame, and everyone used to hang around there. Had a deep sand pit at the time, one of your old classic roundabouts that people would fall off and get their leg trapped underneath and ripped to pieces, or the old swings. Not going to interfere too much because there are kids actually playing around here, but your swings will be situated here. Here would have been the base of your roundabout, and I think it was like one of them like rocking type things that 3 or 4 people would sit on, which would be here. Or perhaps that was a roundabout. That's got more of a roundabout look to it. Yeah, this is just the ruins of what it was now. Behind me is a really decent looking park, but I said there's kids playing in it, so I'm not going to film it. much better playing facilities now, and a huge investment in the area. Now this area is what it was known for the dome for. Where them dining area is, that bench and the table, that's where the dome sat. It was just a great big metal arch, tubular metal arch with rings on it, and you climb your way across. And now replaced it with a picnic area. Yes, we could quite happily go through all the streets that we used to hang around with. It's just significant that growing up, Deb's best mate at school, Sarah, I think it was the second house down here on the right. I'm not going to go fully round it. And then obviously past that, Nicole, who she worked with, who's also a great friend. She would live adjacent to where I'm pretty much walking down now. But yeah, this is Annandale, and I know there's guys that I play football with who have fond memories of this area as well. Walk parallel at the back of the houses adjacent to where we live. Now I believe this is the street Coniston where one of the houses on the end was at a period of time the local shops, because Serpentine wasn't actually built at the time. And my mum actually left me out there one day and walked home shortly after I was born, forgot all about me, left me outside the shop, and then got home. My dad turned around and said, "Have you forgotten someone?" So blind panic ensued and I was collected. I survived the day. Yeah, all these streets, you've got Crummock that goes on from the back of us, and then Felmere where we are, Rannoch, Rydal, all these streets. Family friends, the Driscolls, they certainly would have been around this area back in the day. Probably still live local, to be honest with you. I'm not going to get any closer than this because of what it is. Basically that was our primary school and junior school, known as Drayton Manor now, or Drayton Park. But when we was there, that was Lakes Primary Junior School and Lakes County Middle School. Some fantastic times there. All these classrooms, remember the teachers, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Gay, Mr. Schramm, Miss Simmons, loads of them. All the kids that we used to hang around with at the time. I think my class was this one here, and that goes back into a time when you used to get the little tiny bottles of milk. But yeah, they were happy times. The more senior school, Leon, was not as good for me. I don't think it's anything like that, any schools, when you go up, because it's a dog-eat-dog world and your culture comes in where you're either popular or you're not. So, but there, everyone got along and everyone loved school. Go and pay homage to a dear old friend that used to be a landmark and now tucked away here at the Warren at the back of Serpentine Court. If ever you drove past Leon School, tail end of maybe the 90s, etc., you would come across this fella overlooking on the corner. I believe it was Ferngrove. Our own dinosaur. And this is now where he lives. Good to still see him about. Said this area here is the Warren, and I've just seen over there, do you know, I just turned around and mentioned when we was at the Dome, them seesaw things. There's one there, like a rocking horse type thing. Unfortunately I haven't got a roundabout. Not that I'd go on it anyway. Now this place said used to be the Warren. There used to be a hut that was there, which was sort of air raid shelterish, which ironically fits the bill pretty perfectly, because where the school place is there, the little junior primary school place, just beyond that in a field, buried beneath tons and tons of earth, there is a nuclear bunker. otherwise known as an ROC. It's like a spot where people would monitor things for nuclear fallout, etc. Guess it's sign of the times. But yeah, this is where people back in the day would have had trials for, is it Bletchley Eagles football team? They used to come down and have a kick about here. At one time it was even had a BMX track that was built around the outside of it. But empty now, perhaps because it's a school day. Might get a bit busier at the weekends, but it's got everything you need. Little footballing area, basketball courts, places to play and climb, and our old friend the dinosaur. That there is your back area of Serpentine Court. The shops area to the front over there. We'll walk our way past that after we've gone past Leon. This is one of 2 tunnels on the Lakes Estate. This leads to Serpentine and the shops and Leon School behind it. The other one goes at the back of our place at Felmere and joins on with Hunter's Drive. Serpentine Court shops, or what is left of them, and the old Bowbells pub to our right, which has been closed for gotta be 4 decades, but all these shops went years and years ago. This was our senior school. That to us was known as Leon Comprehensive. I think Deb's left there, I think you would have left there in about 83, 84 possibly. I left 87, 88 I think. Not 100% sure. But it was called Leon. It changed its name to Leon Academy. And then it became Sir Herbert Leon School, which I think it's a sign that they swap it over because they're a failing school at the time. But it's looked exactly the same, not changed at all in the best part of probably 6 decades. There were some terrapin huts at the back near the tennis courts which have been demolished. The football pitch was what they used to call red grass, but it's now like 4G. That's where my football club, the old Hams, play. And there's the swimming pool area. It was mid-80s when Sharon Davis turned up, signing autographs, having a chat with everyone, making sure people were safe in the water. From the school at lunch break or at the end of school, you'd nip through here, take an immediate right to the chippy, or just go left as we're about to and walk through the other part of Serpentine. At night, I guess people can be a bit daunted by walking through here. Never given me any troubles, to be honest with you. The people are fine. It's just the area's got run down. I mean, these benches not been changed in decades. Place has just been left to rot. And I think as people move out, they don't allow new people to take on the property, because the idea is that this is eventually going to be demolished, or has it, although it has a stay of execution for a good probably 3-5 years. It needs pulling down and these people need better homes. But it's not them, it's just the, if you look, the brickwork, the damp, the rot, it's all set in. And that's just time, unfortunately. I think these were only ever intended to be temporary, like the houses themselves. We see the facade on the front of them. It was like the London overspill. Again, because it's the junior infant school, I don't want to get too close and interfere with those. But this area here, that was our assembly room, that was the play area. My class would have been immediately behind that staircase. Now walking down the back, and opposite where we live, on the other side of the school field, this is Menteith, or the back of Menteith. And the reason why I'm showing you this is what me and Deb will remember, is this did not exist. This was a field. Because when we moved in, the Lakes estate was only built up to Felmere Avenue. The rest from down here, while they were building the white factories in front of us, all this area is just fields. The white factory's over there in front of us. I don't know if you've watched the videos, if Deb in her own words, etc. And she goes on about us playing war down the side of the white factories. It was just this bit here, this little hedgerow. We'd basically tuck ourselves down there, get handfuls of mud because they're just being built, and there'd be like crumbly mud, and we'd throw them like hand grenades at each other. Sort of thing you do when you're a kid. And over there where it turns around and says Storage King, that was your Formula 1 Arrows racing team for the best part of 2 decades. Right, that is our street, so we'll do one final loop going via the old tunnel. All of this area at the back here, back of our house, used to be our little adventure playground area. Not supposed to be, but it was. Play around the tunnel, climb up, slide up and down the bank. We used to get cardboard boxes from the time, I think it was Budgings. Myself, Debs, a few others, get them, cut them up, lay them on the side of the bank of the hill here, and throw ourselves off the top. Like our own little slope, just along, down, up and down here, and do that all day long. This tunnel, I said, there's the other tunnel to the lakes, apart from the one at the Warren, painted by Bill Billings, the guy responsible for the Triceratops, the copy of the concrete cows, the big mural at the back of the secret garden, amongst others. I think he's also responsible for the plastic sheep. But yeah, and this is the back of us now. So that's the hill. That little dwarf tree you can see there, the great big green thing sticking up, that was only supposed to grow about 5 foot high tops. My dad planted that when I was 5-6 years old. Before that there was a little pond. Guy that lived at the end of the road, Mark Bletchley, Mum and Dad said to us Sunday, "What are you up to?" We're just playing around. And he turned around, he fell over and he fell in the pond. Same pond that George the tortoise decided to become a turtle, and my dad put him in the oven to sort of dry him out, warm him up, and his head fell off, which Deb tells a story of. And yeah, now frequented by they're not pets, I look after them, but there's a big family of squirrels around here. Come and see us every day. And so for the final time, a slow walk down the street. So many families I can mention, be it the Soleys, the Welshies, the Knowltons, the Driscolls, Scabarrises, Larkins, Russells, Yateses, Porters, Fawns, so many of them, the Hodges, Bloomfield, Hills. We all lived here and we played together. And so our adventure today ends. It's been emotional, certainly has. It's something I had to do. It's not something that's for everyone, but bear with me while I did this, I done it for the right reasons, paying homage to my sister, the memories that we'll cherish and we'll live on. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the movies. It's my birthday tomorrow, so we'll have some fun up the woods. See you later, bye for now.